Today's story is about betrayal, healing, and the kind of love that saves you without you even knowing it. Imagine planning your wedding only to discover your twin sister and your fiancé have been living a secret life behind your back. But sometimes losing what you thought you wanted is the only way to find out what you truly need. This is the story of treasure, precious, and the painful rescue that changed everything. People say twins share everything, but growing up in Lagos with Precious taught me that similarity does not always mean closeness. Our house in Ikeja was large and lively, painted cream, with tall iron gates that screeched whenever they opened. Inside, laughter often followed Precious like background music. She had a kind of presence people noticed immediately: glowing skin, confident posture, and a voice that filled rooms without effort. I, Treasure Williams, was different. I preferred quiet mornings, books spread across my bed, and simple dresses that never demanded attention. Even though we shared the same birthday and childhood memories, our personalities moved in opposite directions. "Treasure, you worry too much," Precious would say, tossing her hair in the mirror before heading out. "And you don't worry enough," I would reply with a gentle smile. Our father would chuckle from the sitting room, reading his newspaper. "Balance. That's why I gave you two to this family." Back then, I believed that balance would keep us safe from hurting each other. Our parents loved us differently. Though neither would admit it openly, Dad admired my academic discipline. He often sat beside me during late-night study sessions, bringing me tea and saying, "Your mind will open doors money cannot." Mom, however, glowed with pride whenever Precious walked into church, wearing elegant clothes and greeting everyone confidently. "That girl will never suffer," Mom would say proudly. Precious thrived on admiration. I thrived on approval. While we finished university, life began to separate us in small ways. I secured a position at a respected law firm on Victoria Island after law school. Precious pursued her dream of becoming a broadcaster and got an internship at a television station in Surulere. Lagos traffic became our daily reality. Long hours in downfall buses, street vendors shouting, and the humid air clinging to our skin. Despite our different paths, we still shared late-night conversations in our childhood bedroom. "I want a big life," Precious once said, staring at a ceiling fan spinning slowly. "I just want peace," I replied. Neither of us knew how these wishes would collide. Smith entered my life on a Monday morning during a staff meeting. The conference room smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink. He spoke with authority, his deep voice calm but commanding attention. He was tall, always dressed in sharp suits, with the easy confidence of someone used to being admired. Everyone respected him, not just because he was a successful lawyer, but because he carried himself like a man who expected obedience. After the meeting, he stopped me in the hallway. "You are the new associate?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "No need for sir, just call me Smith." From that day, he began noticing me, praising my research, asking for my opinion during case preparations, and occasionally bringing lunch for both of us. His attention felt flattering and overwhelming at the same time. I had never been pursued by someone so admired. When he smiled at me, I felt chosen. Our relationship grew quickly. Lagos evenings became softer when Smith was around. He would drive me across Third Mainland Bridge, while the sunset reflected on the water, telling stories about his career and childhood struggles. I listened more than I spoke. "You are different from other women," he told me one night. "How?" I asked. "You are calm, real, not trying to impress anyone." I believed every word. When he proposed during dinner at a quiet restaurant in Lekki, my hands trembled with joy. The ring sparkled under the warm lights, and I felt like my body was finally becoming something beautiful. At home, Precious screamed with excitement when she saw the ring. "My sister is marrying a celebrity lawyer," she joked, hugging me tightly. If jealousy existed in her heart, I did not see it then. The first moment of unease came the day Smith visited our family house for dinner. Rain tapped gently against the windows while Mom served jollof rice and fried chicken. Precious entered the dining room wearing a fitted red dress, smiling confidently. Smith paused mid-sentence when he saw her. "Your twin?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I replied. "Precious." She extended her hand. "I've heard so much about you." Smith shook it slowly, smiling in a way I had never seen before. Something shifted in the air, subtle, almost invisible, like the moment before a storm begins. That night, after Smith left, Precious asked casually, "So how serious is this wedding?" I laughed. "Very serious." But as I lay in bed later listening to distant Lagos traffic, I could not explain why sleep refused to come. The weeks after Smith's visit to our house passed quickly, but something invisible had begun to change. At first, I blamed wedding stress. Lagos had a way of making even happy events feel exhausting. The traffic, endless phone calls from vendors, price negotiations at Balogun markets, and relatives offering unsolicited advice. My weekends were filled with cake tastings, fabric shopping in Yaba, and meeting with the event planner. Smith insisted on paying for everything, saying, "My wife deserves the best." I felt lucky, blessed even. Yet small moments began to disturb my peace. One evening at the office, I noticed Smith smiling at his phone repeatedly during a meeting. When I asked what was funny, he quickly locked the screen. "Just a client," he said. His tone wasn't harsh, but it was final, like a door closing gently but firmly. I ignored the feeling in my chest. Trust, I told myself, was necessary for love. At home, Precious suddenly became more curious about my relationship. She asked about Smith's favorite meals, his work schedule, and where he liked to relax after work. I assumed she was just trying to bond with a man who would soon become her brother-in-law. "You're quiet about him," she said one night while applying makeup in front of the mirror. "I just don't like talking too much," I replied. Precious laughed. "That's your problem, Treasure. Men like excitement." Her words stayed with me longer than I expected. Wedding preparations intensified as the date drew closer. Mom transformed into a full-time planner, constantly on the phone, discussing decorations and guest lists. Dad focused on logistics, calculating expenses, even though Smith insisted on handling most of them. The house smelled of new fabrics and perfume samples. One Saturday afternoon, while Precious and I sorted our sweeping materials in the living room, her phone buzzed repeatedly on the table. She glanced at the screen, smiled slightly, and turned it face down. "Who keeps texting you?" I asked playfully. "Work," she replied quickly. Her answer felt rehearsed. Precious had always been expressive, never secretive. Now she gathered her phone like it contained something fragile. That night I heard her whispering on a call long after midnight. Her voice was softer than usual, almost shy. I told myself not to listen, but something inside me had begun to worry. Smith also began canceling plans more often. Emergency case, he would say, late meeting, client's dinner. Each excuse sounded reasonable on its own. Together they formed a pattern I tried not to say. One evening, after waiting for him at a restaurant in Victoria Island for nearly an hour, I finally called him. I'm so sorry, he said. Something urgent came up. You could have told me earlier, I replied gently. I said, I'm sorry, treasure. The irritation in its voice surprised me. When the call ended, the empty chair across from me looked heavier than it should have. Around me, Lagos nightlife continued, waiters moving quickly, soft music playing, couples laughing, but I suddenly felt alone in a way I couldn't explain. A week later, something happened that deepened my unease. I returned home early from work due to a power outage at the office. As I entered the compound, I noticed Precious standing outside near the gate, speaking with someone inside the car. The car looked familiar. My steps slowed. Before I reached them, the car drove off quickly. Who was that? I asked. Just a friend, Precious replied, adjusting her hair. The answer came too quickly. What friend? Treasure, you asked too many questions, she said, forcing a laugh. I nodded, pretending to accept it, but my chest felt tight. That night, I checked Smith's social media for no reason I could explain. He had posted nothing new. Everything looked normal, too normal. Despite the growing discomfort inside me, I pushed forward with wedding plans. Love required faith, I reminded myself. Then Smith gave me a spare key to his apartment. For when you visit, he said, smiling, you should feel at home there. I hugged him tightly, relieved by the gesture. Maybe I had been overthinking everything. Maybe fear was trying to sabotage my happiness. For a few days, peace returned. Precious became cheerful again, helping mom with decorations and even volunteering to coordinate my bridal shower. You deserve this, she told me, squeezing my hand. I smiled back, grateful. But sometimes I caught her staring into space with a strange expression. Not sadness, not happiness, but something in between. Guilt, though I didn't know it then. The final sign came on a Thursday evening. Smith visited our house to drop off invitation cards. Precious was not home yet. He sat in the living room, tapping his foot impatiently. Are you okay? I asked. Yes, he replied quickly. Minutes later, Precious walked in, slightly out of breath. Oh, you're here, she said when she saw Smith. Their eye contact lasted just a second too long, then both of them looked away. That moment felt like watching a glass crack without hearing the sound. Invisible, but real. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan spun slowly above me, pushing warm air around the room. Lagos was unusually quiet. Beside me, Precious slept peacefully, or pretended to. I turned to face the wall, my mind replaying every strange moment from the past few weeks. The late calls, the cancelled plans, the car at the gate, the eye contact. My heart began to beat faster. For the first time, a thought entered my mind, frightening and impossible. What if something is wrong? I immediately rejected it. Precious was my twin. Smith was my fiancé. The two people I trusted most in the world could not betray me, could they? Outside, a dog barked in the distance, and sleep never came. The final month before my wedding began with noise, movement, and expectations. Every day felt planned down to the minute. The tailor in Surulere kept calling about my dress fittings. Mom argued with decorators over flower colors, and Dad coordinated hotel reservations for relatives traveling to Lagos. Everyone seemed excited except me, though I couldn't explain why. The uneasiness from the past weeks had not disappeared. It had grown quieter but heavier. Smith became unusually affectionate when we were together, as if trying to erase distance I could not fully describe. "You've been quiet," he said one evening while driving me home. "I'm just tired," I replied. "You don't trust me?" he asked suddenly. The question startled me. "Of course I trust you." He reached for my hand and squeezed it firmly. "Good," he said. But something about the way he said it felt less like reassurance and more like a warning. At home, Precious behaved normally again, laughing loudly, watching TV with mom, teasing me about wedding preparations. If I hadn't noticed the strange movements before, I might have believed everything was fine. But once doubt enters the heart, it does not leave easily. One afternoon, I overheard Mom and Precious talking in the kitchen. "You must be careful," Mom said quietly. "I know what I'm doing," Precious replied. "Treasure must not get hurt." My breath caught in my throat. "What are you talking about?" I asked as I entered. Both of them turned quickly. "Nothing," Mom said, forcing a smile. "Just wedding stress," Precious added. The air in the kitchen felt suddenly too warm. 3 weeks to the wedding, Smith began traveling more frequently for court cases. His calls became shorter, his messages became less frequent. Meanwhile, Precious seemed happier than I had seen her in months. She hummed while getting dressed, she smiled at her phone, she started going out more often at night. "Work opportunities," she explained. I wanted to believe her. I truly did. But my instinct refused to stay silent. Then came the day everything changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon, hot even by Lagos standards. The office air conditioner had stopped working and everyone was sent home early. I remembered feeling strangely excited. Smith would be surprised to see me. I decided to cook his favorite soup before visiting. The familiar rhythm of chopping vegetables calmed my thoughts. Maybe I had imagined everything. Maybe love was simply complicated sometimes. Traffic was unusually light as I drove to his apartment. I remember the exact song playing on the radio. I remember the smell of rain beginning in the air. I remember smiling. When I arrived, his car was parked outside. My heart fluttered happily. Using the spare key he gave me, I opened the door quietly, balancing the food container in my hands. The living room was empty, but I heard laughter from the bedroom, a woman's laughter. Familiar. My feet moved slowly down the hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last. My heart began pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. The bedroom door was slightly open, and then I saw them. Precious and Smith. Together in a way no sister and fiancé should ever be. For a moment, my mind refused to understand what my eyes were saying. The container slipped from my hands and hit the floor. The sound made them turn. Precious gasped. Smith froze. No one spoke, no one moved. The world became silent. I expected myself to scream, to cry, to collapse, but none of that happened. Instead, a strange calmness filled my body, like shock had wrapped me in silence. I stepped into the room slowly. Smith began to stand up. "Treasure." I raised my hand. He stopped talking. Precious covered herself, shaking. "Don't," I said quietly. My voice sounded unfamiliar, like someone else was speaking through me. I removed my engagement ring carefully. My hands were steady, too steady. I placed the ring on the bedside table. "The wedding is cancelled," I said. The words felt heavy but clear. Smith tried to speak again. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I replied calmly. Precious began crying. "I didn't mean..." But she could not finish the sentence because there was nothing to explain. I walked out of the apartment without looking back. The Lagos air hit my face like a wave. Cars honked, people argued nearby, a bus conductor shouted for passengers. Life continued normally. Only mine had stopped. I don't remember how I got home. I only remember standing in the shower for a long time, letting the water run over my face. No tears came, just emptiness. Later that night, Precious returned home quietly. We did not speak. We did not look at each other. The silence between us felt like a wall. Around midnight, I finally cried, not loudly, not dramatically, just silent tears that would not stop. Dad knocked gently on my door. Treasure, I opened it and fell into his arms. My wedding is cancelled, I whispered. He held me tightly without asking questions. And for the first time since childhood, I felt completely broken. Down the hallway, I could hear Mom and Precious arguing in hushed voices. Smith called my phone repeatedly. I turned it off. Some betrayals are too deep for words. That night, I realized something painful. The two people I trusted most had chosen each other over me, and nothing would ever be the same again. The days after I called off the wedding passed like slow-moving clouds. Time did not stop, but it lost meaning. I stopped answering calls from friends and colleagues. Messages from work piled up unread. Even the sound of Lagos traffic outside my window felt distant, like noise from another world. My body felt weak as if heartbreak had weight. I barely ate. Sleep came in short, restless moments. Dad stayed close, often sitting beside me without speaking. His quiet presence felt safer than my words. Mom avoided my room, perhaps unsure what to say. Precious remained inside the house but out of sight, moving like a shadow through hallways that once echoed with her voice. One evening, Dad said gently, "You need medical care, Treasure. Your body cannot carry pain alone." I wanted to protest, but I didn't have the strength. The next morning, a doctor came to the house. His name was Dr. Daniel. He looked calm in a way that immediately made the room feel less heavy. He spoke softly, asking simple questions about my sleep, appetite, and headaches. His voice had patience in it, not the hurried tone of someone trying to finish quickly, but the steady rhythm of someone willing to stay. Heartbreak can affect the body, he explained kindly, but recovery is possible. I nodded, unable to say much. Daniel began visiting every few days, checking my blood pressure, encouraging me to eat small portions, and reminding me to sit outside for fresh air. He never mentioned Smith or Precious unless I brought them up. He respected my silence. That respect slowly made it easier to breathe again. One afternoon, as we sat on the veranda, watching children play football on the street, he said, "Healing doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small moments." For the first time in weeks, I believed that might be true. Meanwhile, life in the house moved forward in uncomfortable ways. Precious and Smith married quietly at a registry without celebration. Mom attended the ceremony, Dad did not. I stayed in my room that day, listening to distant thunder and feeling strangely calm. The anger I expected never came. Instead, I felt empty, like the storm had already passed through me and left nothing behind. After the wedding, Precious moved into Smith's apartment. The house became quieter than I had ever known it. Dad returned to reading newspapers in the mornings, though he turned pages without really looking at them. Mom tried to act normal, but her voice often sounded forced. "Everything happens for a reason," she said once while arranging flowers. I did not respond. Some reasons take time to understand. Weeks passed and my strength slowly returned. Daniel's visits became something I looked forward to. He told small stories about his hospital work, never dramatic, always thoughtful. He spoke about helping people recover, about the importance of patience, about faith during difficult seasons. You don't have to rush back into life, he told me one day. Just take the next step. What if I don't know what the next step is? I asked. Then start with breathing, he said with a gentle smile. I laughed quietly, my first real laugh since the betrayal. Something warm returned to my chest in that moment. Peace. Not long after, I began hearing things about Precious' marriage. At first, there were small comments from mom during phone calls. Marriage requires adjustment. Precious is learning. Smith is under a lot of pressure at work, but the tone of her voice worried me. Then one afternoon, Precious visited unexpectedly. She looked different. Her confidence had dimmed. Her makeup was lighter than usual. Her voice was quieter. How are you? She asked, standing awkwardly near the door. I'm getting better, I replied. She nodded, staring at the floor. For a moment, it felt like we were children again, unsure how to speak after a fight. I'm sorry, she whispered. The words were fragile. I did not know how to respond. Forgiveness is not immediate, even when love still exists. After she left, I sat thinking for a long time. I realized something surprising. I no longer missed Smith. The pain of betrayal remained, but the desire to have him back was gone. In its place was clarity. Daniel arrived later that evening for his routine visit. You look different today, he said. Different how? Lighter. I smiled. I think I survived something, I said. He nodded. Yes, you did. Months passed. Daniel and I began spending time together outside his medical visits. Simple walks, quiet conversations, shared meals. Nothing felt rushed or forced. Being with him felt steady, like standing on solid ground after months of uncertainty. One evening, as we watched the sunset from a small restaurant balcony, he said something that stayed with me. Love should never feel like fear. Those words settled deep inside my heart because I finally understood them. While my life slowly filled with peace, Precious' life seemed to be empty of it. Mom mentioned that Smith no longer wanted her working at a television station. He says a married woman should focus on her home, Mom explained. That didn't sound like the Precious I knew. Then came more troubling news. Arguments, control, silence. Precious stopped visiting entirely. And each time her name came up, Mom sounded less certain of her earlier confidence. One night after Daniel dropped me off at home, Dad spoke quietly from his chair. Sometimes what feels like loss is protection. I thought about those words long after I went to bed. For the first time, I wondered if losing Smith had saved me from something worse. By the end of that year, Daniel asked if he could officially cut me. Not dramatically, not publicly, just respectfully. I want to do this the right way, he said. Tears filled my eyes as I nodded, because this time love did not feel like pressure, it felt like peace. 2 years passed in a way that felt both slow and incredibly fast. Life in Lagos continued with its usual rhythm: early morning traffic, the distant call of street vendors, church bells on Sundays, and the steady hum of generators during power outages. In that time, my life became something I once thought impossible: peaceful. My legal career grew steadily, and Daniel remained exactly who he had shown himself to be from the beginning: patient, kind, and deeply respectful. He never raised his voice in anger, never tried to control my choices, I never made love feel like something I had to earn. When he eventually proposed, it was in the simplest way possible. During an evening walk after church, no crowd, no performance, just sincerity. I said yes without fear. Our wedding was small but joyful, filled with laughter that felt real and light. Dad smiled more than I had seen in years. Mom tried to hide her tears, but even in that happiness, a quiet part of my heart still wondered about Precious. Precious rarely visited home anymore. When she did, it was brief and uncomfortable. The bright confidence that once defined her had faded into something fragile. Her shoulders seemed smaller, her voice softer, her laughter almost gone. Mom stopped defending Smith the way she once had. Instead, she spoke carefully, choosing her words like someone walking on broken glass. Marriage is not easy, Mom would say, but I could hear worry underneath. One evening, months after my wedding, Precious arrived at my house unexpectedly. Daniel had just left for a night shift at the hospital. When I opened the door and saw her standing there, my heart tightened. She looked exhausted, not physically tired alone, emotionally drained. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. "Of course," I replied. Her voice no longer carried the confidence that once filled entire rooms. We sat in the living room for several minutes without speaking. The ticking clock sounded louder than usual. Precious kept twisting her fingers together like she was trying to gather courage. Finally, she spoke. I didn't know who else to come to. I waited. "Smith is not the man we thought he was." Her voice broke on the last word. I felt a familiar ache in my chest, not anger, not satisfaction, just sadness. She continued slowly, like each sentence cost her strength. "At first, he said I should stop working because he could provide. I thought it meant he loved me. Then he started criticizing everything I did, how I spoke, how I dressed, how I laughed." Tears filled her eyes as she spoke. He said I was embarrassing him. The room felt smaller. Precious told me how arguments became frequent, how Smith's temper grew unpredictable, how the charming man everyone admired disappeared behind closed doors. She spoke about losing two pregnancies during stressful periods of constant conflict. She described feeling afraid in her own home, something I never imagined Precious could feel. "I kept thinking I could fix it," she whispered. "I thought if I tried harder, he would love me the way he loved you." That sentence hit me deeply because it revealed something I had never considered. This had never been about love. It had been about competition. "I'm sorry, Treasure," she said, crying openly now. "I was jealous of you. I was jealous of Dad's attention, your intelligence, the way people respected you. When Smith noticed me, it felt like I finally won something." Her honesty hurt, but it also healed something between us. "I didn't know I was saving you," she continued. "I thought I was taking your happiness, but I was taking your pain." Tears filled my own eyes because I finally understood. I moved closer and held her. For a moment, we were not adults carrying regret and heartbreak. We were just sisters again, two girls who once shared everything. "You didn't save me on purpose," I said softly, "but God still used it." Precious cried harder, resting her head on my shoulder. "I don't know how to start again," she whispered. "You don't have to do it alone," I replied. Later that night, after she left, I sat quietly thinking about everything that had happened. Daniel's words returned to me. Love should never feel like fear. For the first time, I saw the full picture. If I had married Smith, my life might have become exactly what Precious described. The betrayal that once felt like destruction had actually been protection, a painful rescue. Days later, Dad visited me. We sat outside watching the sunset paint the Lagos sky orange. Precious came home, he said. I know. She needs time to rebuild. We all do, I replied. He nodded slowly. Then he said something I will never forget. God doesn't always stop pain. Sometimes he redirects it. That night, Daniel returned from work and found me smiling quietly. What's on your mind? He asked. My sister, I replied, and second chances. He took my hand gently. You have one, he said. Yes, I answered. We both do. As I lay in bed later, listening to the familiar sounds of Lagos at night, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Gratitude. Not for the betrayal, not for the pain, but for where life had led me afterwards. Sometimes the greatest blessings arrive disguised as loss. And sometimes the person who breaks your heart unknowingly saves your life. Thank you for listening to this story. Sometimes life breaks our heart to protect our future. Treasure thought she lost everything, but she gained peace, love, and a second chance. Have you ever experienced something painful that later made sense? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us again for more emotional African stories. God bless you.